The next section in Genesis 14 on, we're studying battle tactics in Genesis 14, is the soft spots. Okay, let's read this starting in verse 3. All these, referring to the kings of the valley, up in verse 2, joined together in the valley of Sodom, that is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Kedar-Laomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. In other words, they didn't send any tribute that year. In the 14th year, Kedar-Laomer and the kings that were with him came and attacked. And then we have a long list of cities that they attacked. And these cities form sentences that talk about soft spots. Rephaim in Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzim in Ham, the Emim in Shava Kiriathaim, and the Horites in the mountain of Seir, as far as El Paran, which is by the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to Ein Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and attacked all the country of the Amalekites and also the Amorites who dwell in Hazazon Tamar. Okay, let's start working on these. What is a soft spot? A soft spot is a high-value target that is easily attacked. In other words, it's defended lightly on the one hand, and on the other hand, it gives you something big in return when you take it. Okay. In military, we talk about command and control areas, areas where you have commanders, areas where you have communications. These areas are normally defended by people who are not real weapon savvy. They're technical people, and they have an M16 that they're gonna try to defend the place with, and so they're easy targets usually. They're lightly defended on the one hand because they're often in the back area away from the battle, and but when you take them, it does a lot of damage to the enemy. They can't communicate with each other. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Our military is highly dependent upon this issue. So anyway, we're going to figure out, well, what are those soft spots that we can look for that would be a high value target on the one hand, and on the other hand, relatively easy to take. Okay. And before we get into this, let me point out that there is a difference between vulnerabilities and soft spots. The last section was on vulnerabilities. That was the list of the kings of the valley. And we said that there was 5 vulnerabilities, right? And now we're talking about a bunch of soft spots. Vulnerabilities are areas where the enemy can derail you before you go into battle. You need to be protected in those areas so that you can get to the battle. The soft spots are areas within the battle that are going to be attacked. And that's really the two differences, or the difference between the two. So let's get into these. The first one is Rephaim in Ashtaroth Karnayim. Rephaim means healings. Ashtaroth means wealth, and Karnayim means horns. So, what does this mean? If you are healing from some sort of a trauma, whether it be physical or emotional, then you are weakened, obviously. Okay, that makes you an easy target. Okay, so what you want to look for is someone who is recently been healed and is now in the process of healing, something along that line. Someone who has had some sort of a trauma and they're recovering from it. And these soft spots go both ways. They are areas that you can attack the enemy in, and they're also areas that the enemy can attack you in. So if you have someone in your group who's had some sort of a trauma that they're recovering from, they are a weak person. They need extra protection, okay, because they are easily taken. If a demon is trying to get into the group, that's the kind of person he's going to go after. Okay, so those people need extra help. It's the same with going after the enemy. You go into a hospital and just go wander into somebody's room and say, "Would you like prayer?" They'll say yes. Generally, yes, I want prayer, right? Because they're sick. You go up to somebody on the street and say, "Would you like prayer?" And they say, "No, not really." Why? Because they're vulnerable when they're sick, okay? And so we can use that against the enemy, but the enemy can use it against us. All right, the next one is prominent leaders. The Zuzim in Cham. Zuzim means fullness of breast, and that's talking about nurturing. Okay, they take care of the babies. Okay, and then it can also mean conspicuous. It can also mean penetrated soft spot, or raided using confusion. That's what ham means, okay? Basically what we're talking about is somebody who influences other people. That person, if they convert, they'll take all those other people with them, or a majority of them, okay? So prominent leaders are ones that you go after. So if you have a group and you have a spiritual leader in the group, that's going to be the target for the demons. If the demons have a group in the world and they have a leader that runs that group, that's a good target for you. Now this is not an easy target, but it is a very high value target. Okay, it was what was that guy that did the cross and the switchblade? What he did is he went to the leader of the gang and prayed and gave him the gospel, and this guy eventually converted. And when he did, he took a whole bunch of people from the gang with him. And so this is exactly what he did. He used this particular tactic and was highly successful. Okay, the next one is the Emims in Shava Kiryatayim. This is terrified by something. Okay, fear is a big issue here. Okay, terrors in cities of the plain is what it means. The word plain comes from the word level, and the word level comes from the word storm. A storm is something that levels things. We know all about that around here, right? Fears are a great showstopper. When someone in your group is fearful, we need to get a handle on that. They need to get focused on God. God is the power, not them. And when they're focused on the problem, and the problem becomes overwhelming, and they get fearful, then they're out of the game. They've just been taken out. And that stuff is contagious. When they're like that, that can spread to other people. So you have to look at that, nip it in the bud. When somebody in the group is fearful, you got to pour on the word with them, help them, wash them. The Ephesians 5 says, wash your wife with the word. That, well, I was talking about the congregation, right? The wife is the congregation. The congregation needs to be washed with the word, and this is the kind of person that really, really needs that. Okay, but it's the same thing on the other side. When you go out and evangelize and you talk to people, right? They are going to have certain fears. And if you can figure out what their fear is, then that's an open door for you to convert them. This is why talking about the judgment is very important part of preaching. Okay, when you talk about the judgment, that brings up a whole lot of fear in unbelievers. There's a lot of unbelievers who are very fearful about that. They have pressed that down into their subconscious so they don't think about it. But you start talking about it and all that stuff comes up. Now that means that they're going to go ballistic. You know, they're going to blow up about that kind of thing. But that is a fear, which is an open door to wanting a solution to that. What's the solution to the judgment? Okay, getting the path, getting righteous. That is the solution to the thing, and that's what we're offering, is the solution to that judgment. You have fear in that area, we can solve that for you. Okay. And so, and there, of course, there's a lot of other fears that people have, and God is the person who can take care of any sort of a problem that you have. You got you know, car trouble. God can solve that for you, literally. Okay, whatever your problem is, God can solve it in one way or the other. He can solve it, and if you are dependent upon God, then you have all your problems solved. There is no problem that is going to defeat you. Okay. It may bother you for a while, but it's not going to defeat you. You come out as a winner in the end. So, terror is something to look for as a soft spot. The next one, and the Horites in their Mount Seir. The word Horites comes from the word hot anger or cave. Okay? A cave is talking about tunnel vision. When you have tunnel vision, something has become important to you. You have all your focus on something. And there's two types of things that people put their focus on. One is their problems. And the other one is their successes. They get wealth, and that's all they're all about, right? Or they get some sort of a problem. And that's what they're all about, and that's all they're thinking about. Well, this is a vulnerability because if it's in your group, then what's going on? They're not thinking about God. They're thinking about their problem or their success. Okay, and they are blocked from God. Again, we need to wash them with the Word, get them out of that, get them refocused on God instead of focused on their problem or their success, whatever is taking their attention. Okay, their attention has to be on God, or they're no good for your group. Again, this is important for evangelism. You got somebody who has a problem, that's all they're thinking about, and you come in and you say, hey, God is the solution to all problems. Well, you just got their attention because they're focused on their problem. And now you say you have a solution to that problem. Okay? Same with wealth. Wealth is a problem for people because when they get that success, it doesn't give them the happiness that they thought it would. Oh, okay. So, your idea of your goals and stuff didn't get you the happiness that you thought it would give. God will give you happiness. You want real happiness? God will do that. Okay. The next one. Unto El Paran, which is on the desert. Twist strands into a rope, divide in two. This is what El Paran means. Which is on speaking. The word desert means to speak. In other words, they are speaking two different directions at the same time. This is being halted by two opinions. You think you want to go this way, but you also think you want to go this way. And what do? You vibrate, right? And you go nowhere. This is what is called doubt in James 1. You got somebody in your congregation who is halted between two opinions. They got one foot in the world, one foot in the Bible. They're going nowhere, right? That has to change. We have to address that. We have to talk about how that is a problem. That is an open door, and they have been defeated in the battle already. If they're in that position, they are useless in the battle in that position. Okay, but it's the same thing on the other side. Atheists are a good target, right? Oh, I don't believe in God. There is no such thing as God, and I know it, right? Well, do you know everything? Have you been everywhere? Isn't it possible that in one of these little unexplored areas that there might be a God? You've just turned that person into an agnostic. And now he's going in two different directions, and he is destroyed as far as the battle is concerned. He's no longer helping the enemy. He is now a liability to the enemy. Okay, so these kind of things is something that you can do to attack the enemy in. Okay, the next one. And then we have a little phrase here that says they returned. Returned is our word repentance, and it means to change direction, right? And this is a vulnerability. If you have someone who has recently converted, they are easily turned back to their old ways. We see this in churches all the time. Some guy will come up the aisle, give his life to Christ, right? And then you wonder where he is the next Sunday. Why didn't he come back? It happens all the time. Why? Because the Christians don't understand these tactics. So they just let him go on his own for a whole week. And they expect him to come back on Sunday. But the demons, they know these tactics. And they're on him. Monday morning, boy, we are going after that dude. And they know he's vulnerable. He's easy prey for them. And they get him. And they get him. In 90% of the cases, they get him. Because he's easy. He's a soft spot. He has just repented. He doesn't know anything. You say one word of doubt, and he is gone. Right? Those guys don't really love you. They're not even talking to you today. You know. So what do? When you get a convert, you need to talk to them the next day, and the next day, and the next day. You need to be with them over and over and over again, right away. Don't let them get away, because they are vulnerable at that time. And we have lots of stuff to teach them. They have to understand the gospel. It's going to take them days to get that, to get the gospel, right? And start learning the path and so forth. And that's another reason why we're supposed to be meeting on a daily basis, so that we can do exactly that kind of thing. This requires meeting on a daily basis in order to avoid this. Otherwise, 9/10 of your converts are going to go back to the devil. It's a real problem. But it's also a good target for us, because when that guy goes back to the devil, he is vulnerable to us to go get him and come and bring him back in. Okay, so it works both ways. All right, the next one is, and came to Ein Mishpat, which is Kadesh. Ein means not, Mishpat means judgment, and Kadesh means holy. Okay, so in other words, this is holiness without judgment. Judgment is talking about righteousness, right? In other words, we're going to have a religion that is devoid of righteousness. Well, this is a real problem. This is faith without works, okay? Faith without works is a big, big problem for us. If you got somebody in your group who believes that they're saved by faith without works, then they're not going to be concerned about righteousness. They're not going to be concerned about growing spiritually. Okay? They're not going to be serious. They are a liability. Okay? And this would fit with the other side of the coin. If you see somebody who is they're evil, but they're on the evil side, they're not really doing anything about it. You know, they're just the dumb sheep on the other side, right? They're easy to pull over because they're just not into the evil part. They're you know, basically want to be a good person. You know, they're just not, they don't know how to do that. And then they're not doing anything one way or the other about it. So they have some sort of a faith, but they don't know how to funnel that. And that's what we want to do with these people. When they convert, we want to funnel them into the path studies. And that's why we want to have get some graduates going, and then open up a new class, go out and evangelize, funnel them into the class. Okay, the next one is those slowed down by holding on to something. And it reads, and hit all the fields of the Amalekites. Amalekites means people licked up, or toil causing weakness king. When you start, the problem with these words is that there are bits and pieces, and so you say, well, it's similar to this root, or it's similar to that root, and you try to figure out, you know, what is the meaning of this word. And that's why I have different meanings in here, because I'm finding different roots depending on how you split up the word and so forth. Basically, this is somebody who is holding on to something. Now, if you have property, then you're going to have to buy the property, you have to sell the property, you have to maintain the property, you have to think about the property, you have to guard the property, all of that stuff, right? And that takes time, and that means you don't have that time for doing your job as an evangelist, right? So property has got to become second place. You've got to be willing to just walk away from it if necessary. And we actually see this in the Bible when Elisha is talking to, or when Elisha is talking to EliYahu, and EliYahu says, you know, come and follow me. And what does Elisha do? He takes his oxen that he's been plowing with, and he starts a fire with the yoke on the oxen, and then he cuts up the oxen and has a big bonfire and a barbecue, and then he follows him. He just walks away from all that stuff, and that's what you see the disciples doing. They're just walking away from the things that the property that they have. Because why? Because it's that important to them. Okay, all this stuff has to become very important to you. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. In other words, God is going to take care of you. The flowers are here today and burned in the fire tomorrow, right? And yet they're clothed by God better than any rich man. Yeshua wants us to understand that he's going to take care of us. Now, that doesn't mean that you quit your job. That doesn't mean that you're not prudent about the things that you do. These are normal things that you do. They're part of the values of the Bible. So we're not just dropping everything in this case. Now, in the case of Elijah, his disciple had to do that because they were in the starting process of this thing, and the same with Yeshua's disciples had to do that. But once things got going, what do you see? You see Paul being a tent maker, and so that is the normal thing. And when Yeshua sent them outside of Israel, he told them, you take a purse and you take a sword, because you need these things to be prudent. Okay, so but you can't be holding on to them to the point that you're not doing your job. We're going into the tribulation. our property may be confiscated. We may be on the run, okay? You cannot look back like Lot's wife did. She was holding on to that life back in Sodom. And because of that, she was defeated. And that's what we need to do. We need to not hold on to this stuff. If we have to lose it for some reason, it's nothing. It has to be nothing in our mind. And following God has to be everything in our mind. Otherwise, we're going to hold on to that stuff and we're going to be defeated. And then on the other hand, we need to attack people in this way when they are holding on to something. That gives us an advantage because they are distracted from the battle as a result. And as such, they can be talked to. Okay, the next one is people without goals. And also the Amorites that dwell in Chazazon Tamar. Okay, speakers is the Amorites who sit in chopped off palm tree or guidepost. Okay, so Tamar is a chopped off palm tree, which can be a guidepost. What happens to a palm tree if you chop it off? It stops growing. It's not going anywhere, right? It's only the top that grows. So if you chop it off, it stops growing. And this is the same thing. If you're not growing, if you don't have goals in your life, then you are not going anywhere. Okay? And people that don't have any goals are easy prey. Okay? They don't have anything that is pulling them in a certain direction, so you can give them a goal very easily. But it's the same with us. If we have people in the congregation that are just filling a pew till they die, which is what you see in a lot of churches, they don't have goals. They're not growing, and they're not in the battle, and they're not going to make it either. And they need to know that. They need to know that if you're not growing in righteousness, you're not going to make it. And they need to get a goal going. And that is how you funnel them into the disciple training. So we need to identify the soft spots that we have in our congregation, and start working on those, fixing those, correcting those. We need to look at the vulnerabilities so that we're not derailed before the battle. And we need to, as we pray and we start walking in the Spirit and we start dealing with people, then we're going to start dealing with battle situations. And as we go into a battle situation in terms of converting someone, you need to look at these and see, well, how is it that they are vulnerable? How can I attack? How can I accomplish this conversion using these vulnerabilities and soft spots? Okay, so that covers soft spots. Soft spots is really the meat of battle tactics. And this is something that we really need to discuss. We're dealing with Philippians. Philippians has a deacon assignment, an assignment where you are supposed to be doing something, okay? I think that walking in the Spirit and evangelizing is an excellent assignment for us at this point that we should be going out and doing. And, you know, doing the food at Shabbat is obviously one of those deacon assignments that you can do. But eventually we need to be walking and evangelizing. And we need to be using battle tactics in order to accomplish that work. And so this is something that we really need to discuss. How do you do this? You know, I'm thinking about a particular person. How do I attack and convert that person using battle tactics? This is something that people are just not familiar with in everyday life, and so discussing it is really important. All right, soft spots.